Okay, the crazy differences in the Chinese version of WoW. Actually, leave a like and share, subscribe to in Necro War. He actually does like really cool documentaries about WoW. Like it's awesome content. Share the love. The crazy differences in the Chinese version of WoW. So basically, China has like certain laws and certain things that like made it so when Blizzard started to sell World of Warcraft, they needed to change the game in some ways, respectful of like the Chinese government directives, right? Like policies, right? And basically, because of that, like the Chinese version is an isolated version, but at the same time, that has like some completely like crazy differences, like really like true game-changing differences to some, I believe, I think. But like, I'm really curious, so let's check it out.
It just so happened that the Chinese version of Warcraft has a number of differences from the global version. This is expressed in various aspects of the game. Quests, rewards, character models, and even the game subscription system can differ. Today I want to tell you about some rather curious features of the Chinese version of Warcraft. Let's start with the most basic. Many have heard about the Chinese censorship of game models. This is due to the fact that Chinese regulators try to ensure that in various works, from anime to games, the theme of blood and death is softened. And since a product needs to pass through these regulators to enter the Chinese market, creators are forced to censor various aspects of their creations. For example, for this very reason, the blood of characters in some anime works might not be red but white, which in some moments can look, frankly speaking, strange. World of Warcraft was no exception. Blizzard developers had to work hard to make Warcraft, where the theme of death plays a significant role in the plot, able to enter the Chinese market. Because of this, a whole range of game models was replaced or changed, and even in places where an ordinary player shouldn't even be looking. I think many have heard that in the early version of Karajan, you could find several creepy rooms with hanging corpses and a pile of skeletons. These parts of Karajan didn't make it into the release version of Warcraft, but even they had to be edited just in case to avoid problems with regulators. Somewhere, a mountain of skeletons turned
Okay, I didn't expect that like Chinese censorship is about like softening death and violence. It's actually really fascinating.
into just a mound of dirt. Somewhere, extra bodies were removed. The undead race also got hit hard. After all, they are effectively reanimated corpses. Parts of models where bones were visible gained flesh. By the way, flesh and meat that could be encountered as random decoration changed color. It turned from red to green. Skulls were removed on many models. This was especially noticeable in Wrath of the Lich King. And this even concerned small details that not even every player from the global version of Warcraft paid attention to. For example, at Icecrown Citadel, there is a place where the floor texture consists of skulls and bones of fallen creatures. In the Chinese version of the game, this is missing altogether. The floor just has a regular grey-blue texture. Sindragosa, literally the character we meet in the expansion trailer, suffered from model changes. She is a reanimated skeletal dragon. Her model was replaced simply with a blue dragon model. Similar changes affected a couple of other skeletal dragons. Those who remember the login screen of Wrath of the Lich King might wonder, how is Sindragosa shown there? Did she also turn into a regular blue dragon with flesh? No, Blizzard went a much cunning route. In the Chinese version of the Wrath of the Lich King login screen, Sindragosa doesn't fly in at all. Not after a minute, not after 2, not after 10. She just isn't there, and I think this isn't the worst solution to the problem. I think the login screen would look much stranger if a blue dragon were there instead of Sindragosa. The Shadowlands expansion, which is largely connected with the theme of death and the afterlife, also got hit by censors. Bones were either completely or partially removed from many models. Characters became softer. Bony characters gained flesh. Speaking of skeletons, when a player dies, after some time, a skeleton appears at the spot of their body. How did Blizzard get around this problem? Instead of skeletons, a small grave appears at the spot of players' bodies. This looks especially epic when some massive PvP brawl occurs or players try to kill a difficult world boss. The whole ground literally lies in hundreds of graves. And I confess honestly,
this is actually worse. This is actually worse.
It looks pretty epic. Censorship that discourages the theme of death and murder extends not only to game models, but even to quests. In general, one can understand
Damn.
why, since essentially it is one and the same theme for Chinese censors. Death Knights, creations of Arthas, and the forces of death got hit pretty hard. Their entire history and quest chain are somehow connected with killing enemies in the name of the dead, committing terrible atrocities. In some quests, the wording in the Chinese version of the game was softened. For example, in one of the first Death Knight quests, we need to free a prisoner and then kill him. The quest states that knights experience an eternal hunger that brings them unbearable pain. To get rid of it, one must kill someone. If the global version says, I quote, kill and the pain will cease, then in the Chinese version, this phrase is omitted altogether, and the emphasis is placed on the fact that one needs not to kill the enemy, but to defeat them. There is a much more interesting example in Cataclysm.
So a lot of
the undead
details.
captured a significant part of Hillsbrad, and many residents ended up in a grim death camp. Some peasants are buried in the ground up to their heads. The quest says that ghouls periodically pounce on human heads and devour them. And we are offered a choice. Either save the peasants by digging them out of the ground with a shovel, or finish them off with the same shovel. In the Chinese version, the description that ghouls pounce on human heads is removed, and the quest description is shorter and softer. To be fair, such censorship does not concern all quests by far. In some, the theme of death, blood, and murder is described quite normally, but such curious abbreviated quests still have a place.
That's interesting.
Okay, with the peculiarities of game models and censorship, I think everything is more or less clear. Let's talk about more general differences. There is the familiar subscription system for Warcraft. We can buy a subscription for 1 month on the Blizzard website and play World of Warcraft all this time. Previously, you could avoid setting up a subscription and just buy game time for 30 days straight away. In China, however, there used to be an option to buy game hours. I assume this was due to the fact that gaming cafes were quite popular in China. Unlike a home computer, where you can play as much as you want, in computer clubs, you're limited. And it is quite inconvenient to set up a monthly subscription if you can only play when you are in such an establishment. And that might be only a few times a week. Moreover, in a club, you already pay money for the opportunity to play. Specifically for the Chinese region, the opportunity appeared to play the game by the hour. The system constantly changed, and how many hours were available to players changed. Initially, there was an opportunity to buy 4,000 minutes of play, which cost 30 yuan, or about 6 cents per hour at that time. Note that 4,000 minutes is specifically game time, not real time. That is, in theory, 4,000 minutes could be stretched out even for a month. In 2014, they decided to change the system a little. Instead of 4,000 minutes, an opportunity appeared to buy 2,700 minutes of play, or 45 hours. At that moment, it cost approximately 9 cents per hour. Or you could buy 1,350 minutes, or 22.5 hours. That is already about 11 cents per hour. There were other options, but they are not important to us right now. What is important is that at some point, the system began to outlive its usefulness. Many people acquired home computers, and the need to visit internet cafes simply disappeared. Plus, apparently, the Chinese localizer, NetEase, didn't really like the hourly payment system. Therefore, in 2016, they decided to close up shop. Hourly payment faded into oblivion, and the usual subscription system, just like in other regions of the world, took its place. In theory, those who play Warcraft a lot ended up winning, but the conditional casuals who log in a couple of times a week to do story quests and run through dungeons a bit turned out, on the contrary, to be the losers from this change. By the way, regarding the game, there are restrictions in the Chinese region for those who have not reached the age of 18. And this concerns not only Warcraft, but a bunch of online games. Moreover, from time to time, the restrictions were tightened. For example, in 2021, there was news about intentions to limit online gaming time to 1 hour on certain days of the week. And in 2025, news flashed that players would only have access to 15-16 hours of play during the month of school holidays. I don't know how effectively all this works in practice, and I don't want to get into this topic. I just want to note how this manifests in World of Warcraft. There are system notifications in the game about restrictions applied to the account if a player plays Warcraft for too long. At least until 20v20, a player could play calmly for 3 hours. If they played longer than 3 hours, restrictions began to apply. The amount of experience and money received was cut in half. If a player played more than 5 hours, the restrictions became even more brutal. The player no longer
when they started designing World of Warcraft, like they wanted to actually like discourage like people doing playing too much as well in the Western market, But like technically they gave up because like it was like a version of fatigue, basically like you get less XP, but like not money though. Like you will just get less XP, but they changed it after a while.
Loot, experience, or could complete quests until they took a break from the game. Another interesting difference between the Chinese version and the global one is exclusive mounts, pets, donations, and even game modes. About a month ago, I talked about how in China, there are several exclusive pets that were available through special promotions. In other regions of the game, obtaining these pets was physically impossible. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Take the Swift Spectral Tiger, an extremely rare mount. It could be obtained using a rare collection.
Yes, that's why it's rested XP at ends and cities. Yeah. Hey Tarek, how was your day, friend?
Collectible card. Even now, the cost of the mount on various exchanges can reach impressive values, and the number of players who manage to get this mount is minimal, since cards with it are extremely rare. In the Chinese region, the Spectral Tiger could be obtained by buying a 6-month bundle during Classic Burning Crusade, and in 2024, in honor of the 20th anniversary of Warcraft, the mount could be obtained by buying another exclusive Classic bundle with various goodies. And now, in honor of the Lunar New Year, the localizer decided to stir up some major event where players can team up, earn special points, and receive boxes as a reward from which the Spectral Tiger, Love Rockets, and several other cool exclusive mounts or toys can drop. One of the toys literally places a small statue on the ground around which a golden dragon coils. Other players can jump onto this statue. And this is just the beginning. At the end of 25, players in China could participate in an event where they could obtain several Panther mounts with the ability to customize them further. And in honor of this event, a 2-minute animated trailer was literally released. Honestly, I wasn't ready for this and I don't even know how to comment on it. But that's not all. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Besides customizable mounts, players could receive the first flying mount with vendors. It is a sort of Deathwing-like dragon around which 2 small dragon whelps fly. One is a vendor with the ability to repair armor, the second is a flying mailbox. All these rewards were shoved into a special gacha.
It's a fucking flying mount? Wait, what the fuck?
Armor, the second is a small dragon whelps fly. One is a vendor with the ability to repair armor, the second is a flying mailbox.
A flying mailbox and a flying repair? Still pew-pewing my way in Star Wars. There's a lot of baddies and droids to kill around here. I'll protect the galaxy then. Like, what the fuck? Did you heard? So basically, like, see this mount? See the 2 little dragons? It's a repair and a fucking mailbox. But it's a flying mount. We don't have this even like now. What the fuck? Because it's a flying mount.
One is a vendor with the ability to repair armor, the second is a flying mailbox. All these rewards were shoved into a special gacha-like system with the loot boxes. I didn't really understand how it works, but that's not the point. Quite a few people from other regions of the game, when they saw what was happening in China, were surprised to put it.
Yes, I am listening. Much cooler than the Brontosaurus. I hate this mount, like for real. Like this mount, like no.
Mildly, and far from everyone was happy. Their version began to diverge too much from the global one, and as if the game is moving in the wrong direction, examples of exclusive rewards could be cited for a long time, but I think you got the general gist. There is stuff there that is absolutely inaccessible to players from other countries. This doesn't exist in other regions of the game, I assume, because the community would perceive such donation options with hostility, but in the Chinese region, this is acceptable. Let's now talk about differences in modes and PvE content. A few months ago, it became known that a new, exclusive mode, Titan Reforged, would become available to Chinese players. One of the main features of this mode is an attempt to combine Classic, Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King into a single whole. Bosses of Classic and BC will be raised to level 80. The same will apply to raids and dungeons, something like a massive scaling of the old game world. Also in this mode, requirements for reputations and professions are greatly simplified, and some engineering items can be used without learned and leveled engineering. In short, they have a whole new and unusual mode. Will it ever appear on other game servers? Only time will tell. But okay,
I don't think so.
Mode. But what is unusual on regular game servers? In 2012, a curious piece of info slipped through that players in the conditional European or American region get slightly different items dropping than in regions not only of China, but of Asia in general. This became known from an interview with Ion Hadzikostas conducted by the Top Guild Method. Already in Pandaria, an item upgrade system appeared. For example, a conditional chess piece could have 4 upgrades, each of which slightly increased the item level and stats. A player from conditional Europe would get an item of level 496 with 0 upgrades, dropping from a boss in a raid. At the same time, a player from Asia would get the same item, but already with 2 upgrades, and its level was not 496, but immediately 504. That is, ultimately, if players upgrade the item to the maximum, 4 out of 4 upgrades, the item will be identical in both level and stats. But players from Asia had slightly better starting conditions, and the difference was no less than 8 item levels. However, the higher item level was compensated by slightly more difficult bosses. Bosses in Asia dealt 8% more damage to players and had 8% more HP. This moment was later.
Well, this is interesting because, like, at first you're like, it's kind of weird. Why would they do that? You know, like favoritism, but like, who the fuck cares about like giving like 3 upgrades in a raid? But like in exchange of 8% more HP and 8% more damage from the bosses, this is actually a fair trade, but like it's really cool and strange.
Recalled during the progress race in the siege of Orgrimmar, when unexpectedly for everyone, a Chinese guild managed to be the first in the world to clear the raid in 10-man heroic difficulty. Speaking of raids, there is such a thing as the Hall of Fame for the Horde or Alliance, into which get 100 guilds that manage to be the first to defeat the final raid boss on mythic difficulty. This is quite an honorable achievement, which I think few would refuse to receive. The Chinese Hall of Fame had a problem. Far from all guilds got into the Hall of Fame through their honest and hard work. It is quite possible that they simply gave money and possibly accounts to more experienced players so that they would clear the raid on Mythic for them and they would get the achievement. The Chinese localizer decided to clean up the Hall of Fame and punish unscrupulous players. They literally started calling some raiders and asking them various questions. For example, one player, I assume a multi-boxer, was asked why his 8 characters were participating in the raid simultaneously, to which he replied that he just plays well. After that, he was issued a ban. Other players were asked trickier questions and asked about the mechanics of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, like when you aim for like world first, like it's kind of like trying to fucking scam a Blizzard Activision. On this level, it's really difficult, and they really have like ways to track like fights and stuff like that and data in WoW that is like really precise. So that's kind of funny because this time it's like you can maybe people don't really understand it, but like Blizzard Activision, the GMs and stuff, these people, they don't fuck around. They really can fucking see everything from your characters, your account, and what you did and stuff like that. So for the world first, like some people trying to fucking like for example, like the glitches and stuff like that, they always caught them. Always did.
No boss, Denathrius. Obviously, if a player is in a good guild and got into the top 100, it would not be a problem for them to tell what happens in this or that phase of the battle. But unscrupulous players are unlikely to cope with this. Therefore, when the localizer called suspected players, some cracked, which confirmed that they got into the Hall of Fame, certainly not by their own efforts. 16 guilds were removed from the Alliance Hall of Fame in this way, and players not only lost the honorary reward, but also received short-term bans. I think these measures are just a drop in the ocean. Those who wanted to buy rewards or a place in the Hall of Fame will do it one way or another, just maybe less obvious.
Okay, this was a really cool and entertaining video. I actually didn't knew about like Chinese censorship, and I didn't thought that like it was about softening death to make like games less violent. It's really fascinating. Thank you, Nico Roar. Leave a like, subscribe to him if you like this content, share it, love, you know.